welcome to episode 5 of In Our AI Era with Ragnar and Tina.
Hi, everyone. And in today's topic, we are talking about agent teams and fleet of agents. So before we dive into that, I want to share the AI concept of the week. So, Tina, what do we have for concept of the week?
So, my concept of the week is observability of agents, which is not a new concept, but I chose it because last week Agent 365, our Microsoft observability platform, went GA. And it's really something that you should check out. I will put the link down below to the documentation because as we go from agents that are just interesting demos to having thousands and thousands of agents in production, a really important thing is going to be monitoring these agents. I also think because agents are coming now in all shapes and sizes, and we'll discuss agents, a different agent framework today in the video, it's really important to be able to monitor all of these agents and to know what they're doing. For example, you now have agents that can run on a user's behalf, right? That's kind of how all agents worked in the past, but you're also starting to see AI teammates. So an AI agent that operates with its own identity within M365, that has its own mailbox, its own team presence. So we're starting to see the number of agents are just exploding and the types of agents are also constantly changing. The only way that you can keep on track of this is to have a good monitoring platform. So check out Agent 365 below. It's really the concept of the week for me.
That's amazing, Tina. So, thank you so much. In my view, I am talking about OBO. I know you spoke about the observability, but in my view, everyone should be start thinking of OBO. What do I mean by OBO? On behalf of. So we recently started thinking about agents are doing all these tasks, but you need to understand who are these agents working on behalf of. Because even with Agent 365 and others, we need to understand how do you build these agents? Who are they working on? Especially as we are scaling into the place of moving away from just personal productivity to productivity for the team or the company. Especially when you're thinking of enterprises we work with, healthcare, all the places, and finance, where we really want to know who did this agent act on behalf of and who's responsible, who's going to take actions on that agent's decision making. We always speak about human in loop, but OBO will be something that will automate that. That's the concept I've been really trying to understand and figure out. How do we build that into the thing? What you mentioned kind of goes hand in hand, but as a designer, as an architect, I always think about on behalf of whom is this agent acting or taking a decision.
I really love that. And it's something that is definitely not clear in the way that we're working with agents today. My personal assistant just writes an email and I don't even put the note at the bottom that it was assisted by AI. So I think having it clear who this is from and who initiated it will be such a game changer in enterprise systems, especially in our area of finance, because here you want to have traceability and auditability. So on behalf of will be big.
Great.
Let's get into what we want to talk about today, which is fleets and teams. And maybe I can introduce this by saying, whenever someone say multi-agent, I get a little bit suspicious. Multi-agent to me sounds like 5 chatbots in a trench coat that are going to pretend to be a startup.
That's a terrible description, but also mostly true because each one is vibe coding on themselves, right? So they're all trying to do everything on their own. They act like a consulting firm and everything. They do all the things together. I agree with you. Sometimes it feels like a startup started by agents that are just chatbots.
Absolutely. Can you sell me on teams and fleets or explain to me what is the point?
So I think we were talking about this earlier, right? So it's like hiring a small software development team. So if you are building this agentic team, one of the things is you want to be the client and you want to hire them in on behalf of you, right? OVO kind of a way. So if you're building an agentic team, think of what kind of team you're building, what kind of quality. So you need to put all of those into that frame of how am I building it. It's not just, oh, GPT 5.5 came, I'm going to put that as a lead for all the models. Or you need to hire the right team, is how I would say it. And it's still like a startup, but you actually have a real way of curating who is in that team. And there has been a really fundamental shift in my approach towards working on any projects, Tina. You know this closely, but for all the listeners here, one of the things we are doing now is every time we build a product or a build on a new concept or a project, the first thing I do is I go and hire myself a lead. So if I'm building a CLI kind of a application, I build a lead. If I'm building a hosted agent, so for our last video, like Tina and I did, we both hired a hosted agent lead who is aware of, and he hired all the Azure experts. Then they also hired the Dataverse experts. So these agents, they can hire each other as well. So that's the concept that we are going deep into this video as well.
That's very interesting. So you start with a lead, and then they go hire other people in your team. So who do they usually hire? Like who would be in the kickoff meeting of your project?
Yeah, the first of all, I always hire the lead as who's required for this. So there are times when I really need a lead agent to be an AI architect. And funnily, in our examples, me and Tina, we always have like our own agent OS leads. Mine is Ruby, which is my dog. So Ruby is more of a project
Mhm.
manager kind of a lead. So she does all the project management and PM stuff for me in my view. And then I also have Rocky, which is more of an AI researcher or an AI architect. We get a lot of these preview features, and I'm trying to explore what all is possible to build with that preview feature. But to make this concrete, let's say you want like a researcher, you want like an AI architect, a developer, a QA person, and a DevOps engineer. Those are the teams that I'm thinking of building first for any project, but they all depend on what we are trying to achieve. And as leads us ourselves, Tina, if we start a project, we know whom to go hire in our own team or whom to join the V team in a way. So I create that V team first in every project I do.
So the lead would pick who to hire, or you would pick who to hire.
The idea for me is I am building a lead in such a way that lead understands the whole concept. So what I've been doing is I spend a lot of time with the lead. So it's same like our managers picking us, like like so we'll spend more time between each other talking about, hey, we met this customer. These are all the agents they need. How do we think of an architecture and the solution on our own? So I work a lot with that lead first, and then I just assign lead some tasks, which is the primary first task is to achieve this goal, build me a plan, and then for this plan to be executable, what team members do we need? And for them to be successful, we'll go deep in the next layers of how we are using the fleet in GitHub Copilot and team of agents.
Okay, that makes sense. Let me tell you where I get suspicious. In real consulting firm, half the work is actually in meetings and Slack messages. So let's say you've hired this team of agents. How are they talking to each other without it becoming a mess and half the conversation being missed because it's somewhere hidden?
Yeah, the answer is very silly sometimes because you know what's the joke now is we all moved away from Jira and other tickets. We just thought like AI can do all of this. And then now we are starting to realize AI needs the issue tracking things now. So AI has to log the issues, send it to a different team of agent. So the idea is simple. They have task list. I think all of us have seen it creates a to-do list for it. But imagine if the to-do list for all of the shared team members. So then everyone's knowing which agent is doing what. And then there's also a mailbox concept that we are trying and testing out, which means an agent from QA will send a message to the developer like, hey, this issue happened and this thing failed. And the inbox mail would be, it's a local thing that we are running today, but it could be on the hosted agents as well. The developer agent will get the task in a mailbox and they will go do the task to resolve the issue.
Let's start with the task list. Is the task list some kind of agentic orchestration platform, or is it just files?
In a view, it's just a .md file because agents are very good at a .md file. Recently, OpenAI came with a Symphony, so which is basically a Kanban board. And I know we made this joke earlier, Tina, is everyone just trying to vibe code a Kanban board. And then when the Symphony news came, it was so funny because even agents were building a vibe coded Kanban board. So so the goal is everyone's building just Kanban boards because the concept remains the same. It has can been proven and tested. And also sometimes you have to think of this, we still want to be in the loop. So I want to see what agents are doing. And as a human readable format, I think Kanban boards make sense. But these are more like ticket items that agents are creating for us as well.
Okay, and the mailbox, is that literally a mailbox or how does that work?
The mailbox is technically just a mailbox. It's like an inbox with assigned to someone. The difference between a task list and a mailbox, if you can think about, is uh, in the task, if I put everything that I have done and all the context and everything, the task list will become, instead of bullet line items, it will become like a big paragraphs. So the mailbox is more around the concept of, I will give you all that I've done as a QA. Here are the things, and here is why it failed. So they can, when they're working on a specific issue, they can go to that mailbox for that specific number. So it's like an attached file that you add it to the task list. That's how we are doing it. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand. There's two main parts of the team. One is the Trello board or the Kanban board of task list, which is just a file, and the other is also just a file, but it's more like a group chat where they can update each other about their statuses.
Exactly. So the great analogy in my view, because it's just written in plain view for you and me as well as the agents. That whole language thing is coming into reality now for us, right? So even agents are talking like the way we do. So you can look at any moment and see exactly what's happening. There is no concept of this, hey, I don't know what the agent is thinking. There's no black box now. We can see, imagine when one agent is working, we were always worried. Imagine if five are working, we don't want it to be a black box.
Okay, that makes sense. So transparency and debuggability is a kind of feature of the system. In some agent systems that I've seen, there's one boss agent and everyone else is just responding to it, all the sub agents. And then in the end, the boss becomes a bottleneck. Does this architecture avoid that?
In reality, there is a deliberate design choice that's being happening by different teams, right? So Anthropic agent teams model, what they are thinking is they built the agent teams on a lead orchestrator, which does not micromanage. If a developer needs to take a decision choice, they can take it, or an architect, they can directly do their design choices on their own. And on the other side, on the GitHub's fleet, the orchestrator owns the decompositions of more tightly. So workers add tasks to the thing and execute them, but the fleet is going to like share with each other in a different way. If you think about this, we should also not give the control to the model or a provider. You could build your fleet the way you want. You could build the agent team the way you want. If you want the lead to be doing more of the work as a manager, you can provide them that. Or you could, if you hired those people to be self-sufficient, you should give them that freedom. We can build a harness in a way that each agent is performing properly. So that harness should be the one that controls how they behave, not the orchestrator, in my view.
Okay. So one thing that I also wanted us to discuss is the different terms, because when I started reading about this, I saw that some vendors use different words for sort of the same thing. At least GitHub uses the term fleet. Anthropic talks about agent teams. I guess also multi-agents work as a phrase. Do you see all these things as the same?
Um, Great question, and I think this is something as team members and using AI every day, we should be pausing and trying to think, what does it mean? The short answer is that the core architecture is very similar across all of them, right? So one lead agent, multiple workers or multiple agents, parallel execution, some kind of shared coordination layer, whether it be Kanban or task words. So the differences are more in the capabilities of what each CLI provider is providing. But in my view, the core architecture is still should be owned by the users who are hiring these teams.
Could you give me some examples of the differences between the platforms?
Let's talk about GitHub fleets within Copilot CLI. We use that all the time. And one of the things we realized was sometimes when you have a thing to do, you don't have to wait for every task to be done one by one. You could parallelly send tasks. And in my view, that's how they started with parallel task execution. So that was the main goal for that fleet. You give it a plan, it breaks it down into independent subtasks. And the idea there was how can I run this parallelly with different sub agents? Sometimes it could be spawning its own thing as well. So the lead is very much an orchestrator that works on providing right focused tasks to these agents and others.
Okay, so that's for GitHub fleets. What about Anthropic, which I guess are called agent teams?
Yes, in their concept, they actually came with a first concept called subagents, and then now they
Okay.
moved to agent teams. Anthropic's pattern leans more on peer collaboration. So teams can message each other directly under the main orchestrator layer, but all the challenges or all the things are all going to be going through that peer review. So the shared task list is the central hub for Anthropic agents. The emphasis there is mostly on workers operating like colleagues rather than like assistants on their own. But again, these are more of how they initialized those patterns for you to do without any harnessing or without any planning. But if you plan, you can act them, make them work in whichever way you want. One quick caveat, Tina, here. Let's make sure that let our users know that these are experimental in Cloud Code and as well as Fleets is generally available today right away. But please make sure we are in the podcast in our AI era. Today is May 5th, so we are documenting what's happening today. So you need to enable those experimental features like the way we are testing.
And then the third thing we mentioned was the sub agents. So how does that differ?
So think about this. When I talk to my primary lead agent or the lead agent from either Anthropic or someone, we are only talking to that one agent, and everything under that is going to be the sub agents. In it's mostly understanding how that works. It's more like the hierarchy level. Sub agents are lighter versions. A sub agent is a helper that does the main agent spawns to get the jobs done. I know today we didn't speak about how a main agent can hire agents on the fly as well. There is a concept of if I do not have a task lead, how would I hire them on the fly as well? So you can build that to your main lead. But sub agents are just some part of that agent's lead who are going to do the task for us.
In which cases should I not use a team?
Okay, good question. Because a lot of the times, every time a new feature comes, we are jumping on to let's use it. So that's a great
Exactly,
question.
yes.
I have like three anti-patterns maybe. So sequential work, if task B needs the output from task A, or parallelism buys nothing, right? So in that scenario, you don't need a fleet, but maybe you still need a fleet or a team that can build things for you and then act on your behalf on its own. And also same file edits. Two agents are working the same file and not the shared task. One of the things to remember about shared task is it's more like our ADO or something. It doesn't mean it's going to replace what you're writing, right? You can create your own list. So that's not the concept here. But if you're working on the same code, let's say you're working on the same feature, you're editing the same source code from two angles. And you can see that happen in your own CLI if you want. Sometimes I try to work with GPT-5 and OPS4, but what I do is I try to tell them create your own source file and work on them instead of working on the same one because it can break your code in no time. And the third one is routine task. So don't spin five workers to do something on its own unless you know it's a real benefit for you. One tokens is one way to think about it, but also if something is in a routine way, there is a different approach I think we can take in terms of, hey, how can I optimize this with one agent to get it done?
So what I take away from this is that these are all multi-agent systems. They're basically like hiring a tiny consultancy firm or maybe a developer team that you have in a folder, a lead, a few specialists. They have a shared task list and they have a mailbox. Some vendors call it a fleet, some vendors call it an agent team. but kind of the skeletons of these things are the same. And you can use sub agents if you just want them to do simple tasks and go grab things. But if you want the team to work together and give each other feedback and back and forth, you would do teams. Did I sum that up correctly?
Thank you, Tina. This was great. You nailed it. I think I have no other comments than to say the only suggestion I have, or the thing that I think of building these teams now is if I'm hiring a team as an owner, or if I'm building a company, like you said, whom am I hiring? That's all it is.
Yes.
So that's the only concept I think people has to start thinking and building it into your own OS system.
This is great. Thank you so much. This is a wrap on episode 5 of In Our AI Era. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, Tina. Bye.